Welcome, everyone. So, welcome to today's Tuesdays at 2. I am your host, Antoinette LaGrossa, and Schiller Learning is part of the nonprofit Rising Stars Foundation. Our goal is to help you help your child fulfill their potential through a personalized multi-sensory education. We've got a lot of support and resources for you in addition to today's sessions. Like today, you are going to find a homeschool freebie bundle at our website with over 200 pages of planning tips for parents as well as students, and a lot of other resources for you on our blog that will be helpful no matter what curriculum you're using. And then, of course, we also have our math and language arts curriculum. We're going to take a look today at the lesson plan builder. I often refer to this as the best kept secret in homeschooling. It is one of the most fabulous tools you are ever going to encounter. Once you use this, you are literally going to want to know where this has been your entire homeschool life. What this is going to enable you to do with very little preparation and thought is to create a personalized curriculum for your child. In homeschooling, we try to tailor an education as much as possible to each individual child's needs. And that can often mean a lot of parent prep time, researching, pulling things together. But with the Schiller Learning lesson plan builder, it is just going to make all of that amazingly easy. Is there anyone on today's session that has used the lesson plan builder in the past? Now, the lesson plan builder is based off of the Schiller Learning diagnostic testing. And we do have a promo code for you, a free gift for attending or watching the replay of the session. And Amanda, if you can plug that into the chat so folks can copy it out as well, but it's really easy. It is simply Tuesday DTK for Diagnostic Test Kit. And that is going to let you grab those diagnostic tests, which are going to be really helpful, not only if you're trying to place your child in Schiller Learning and figure out either which kit you should start with, which book you're going to start with, but even for finding and filling gaps for students who are using other programs, because this is going to enable you to very efficiently take a step back to the beginning, some dialogue. We're actually going to go through some of those questions from the first test and find gaps that exist from earlier on, especially for students who are, oh, excuse me, just a second. Okay, so filling gaps for those older students who are struggling with math, that population especially, because for those students, they're just going to continue to struggle, but in a more profound way as math moves on without them, and they're not able to build on a foundation that simply isn't there. Of course, for the kids starting off from early on, it's going to, ensure that they have that solid math foundation. Math in particular, you cannot build on a foundation that isn't there. And US math scores, you see early elementary, when a lot of programs, it's kind of just regurgitating facts in those early years, math facts. Sure, they can do addition, they can do subtraction because of memorization. But if they don't understand the concept, the why behind what they've memorized, when they start having to do problem solving and pulling concepts together that you see in later elementary or early middle school, that's when in the US math scores, you see that they start to really slide. And that slide continues all the way through high school. And that's because there are gaps from earlier on that simply are never filled in. And so that student continues to struggle and mistakenly think that they are just not a math person, when in reality it has not yet been spoken to them in a way that they are able to understand. And that's where that multisensory approach comes in, because that's going to ensure that no matter what your students' needs, their challenges, that they're going to be able to be successful with that. Okay, so a personalized learning plan is a learning plan that, number one, starts off by assessing the student's current knowledge. Then it identifies those gaps from earlier in that subject and then creates a personalized learning plan, a customized curriculum, which this lesson plan builder is going to do for you. And not only is it going to give you that list, that guide, but it will actually create a brand new PDF file with only the lessons needed by that student. So super convenient when you're just working with one, but even better when you are working with multiple students. So this is going to make it really easy to custom print just what is needed. With all of the ShillerLearning kits, you're getting lifetime access to downloads of all your printed material. And that means that you only need to purchase one kit for the entire family. So for example, Math Kit 1 covers pre-K, kindergarten, first, second, and third grade concepts. 5 years for the entire family. So with that one purchase, if you have 4 kids and it's covering 5 years for each of them, you've essentially gotten 20 years of curriculum in that one purchase. And that lesson plan builder makes it really easy so that, if you have older ones who are only going to be filling gaps, it makes it just a convenient way to print also, just in that day-to-day execution of things. Okay, the first thing that you need to plug into that diagnostic test builder, which we are going to take a look at in just a minute, is the diagnostic testing. Best practice is that even a child who is 13, 14, 15 years old starts at the first diagnostic test from book 1. They are included in the kit. So if you are purchasing a kit, you do not have to add that separate diagnostic test pack to your cart. They are there individually for you, so that if you are going to use them simply to assess your child's math knowledge, they're using another program, you want to ensure that they indeed have that solid foundation, you can get just the tests. Or if you're trying to, decide, you have an 8-year-old, but they've only done a little bit of multiplication, and you're trying to see, okay, well, how much of Math Kit 1 would they need before going into Math Kit 2? That test is going to, help you see that. And then it's also going to perfectly place them. Okay, so again, best practice, start the child off with the first test from book 1. For an older student, it's going to take just a couple of minutes. And you'll see in that diagnostic test pack, there are 4 tests from each of the books, which means for Math Kit 1, there are going to be 12 tests in that download. In Math Kit 2, there are also 12 tests in that download. In the fractions, there are 4 tests. If you are testing a child, this is not designed as batch testing where you're administering all of those to the child at once. No, this is done as part of the learning process. So once you do that first diagnostic test, if there is a single gap identified, a single question answered incorrectly, we do not go from that test on to the next one. Once we're finished with the first test, we're going to stop that personalized learning plan, have the student do those activities to fill that gap. Because once you fill that earlier gap, they may get a question correct on a subsequent test that they would have gotten wrong had we not filled that earlier gap. It's really great to see those kids who previously struggled with math as they start testing and filling in those gaps. They start making connections between concepts even before they get to that, formal review, remediation of that topic, just from having those earlier gaps filled. Okay, now you could print them, but you can also just have your child join you at the computer and run through them verbally. Have them join you with a blank sheet of paper. I do not recommend printing out all 12 tests and showing your child that stack of work and say, you're going to take a test. Because again, you're not doing all the tests at once, and it's going to look like a big stack. So that's, just test by test. They're multi-sensory, the tests themselves, so the kids are going to enjoy them. First question is, what's the name of each of these shapes? Again, an older student is going to fly through that test question very quickly. Then we are going to ask, how many diamonds are there? And then you can see here, there are lesson numbers. Those are the lessons that the student would need if they happen to answer that question incorrectly. So you could write down that list, but it is even easier to use that lesson plan builder. And you can see that a lot of this is designed to be done as dialogue, as opposed to the child having to write for every answer. So which is the biggest triangle, A, B, or C? Which is the smallest triangle, A, B, or C? And the student can either answer verbally or point. You're also going to see that there is body movement included in here, as well as auditory activities. So you may count to 9 out loud, you may clap 4 times, you may jump up and down 3 times. That respectful language that you find throughout the ShillerLearning curriculum, you see that reflected in the testing as well. Now we're coming to a question that we find not uncommon for even kids coming out of public school, gifted and talented programs, will sometimes answer this question incorrectly. Is this number of dots even or odd? And going through that. But if you get that incorrect, no problem. They just need lessons 9, 37, 49, and 50. And again, let's say that was the only question they answered wrong. You would definitely want to fill that gap before going to that next test. Reading each number aloud. And then if you happen to have these 10 blocks, they can also get you the materials for those. Of course, if you're testing when you have the kit materials, you do have that as well. Now, let me just flip back to that real quick. Sometimes people are surprised that there is a place value question in a test that is designed for school children. But in Montessori, the place value is introduced very early. The child is never intimidated by learning higher place values. And it is done in such a multi-sensory way that the kids, first off, really enjoy it and are able to pick up on the place value very intuitively. And it works to give them an unparalleled math foundation, because that understanding of place value and developing that number sense or what place values represent in a real physical sense, is unparalleled in Montessori. Okay, then which is shorter, A or B, which is longer, which is not the others, and why. You can see it's a lot of conversation. Turn your face to the left, lift your right leg, left thumb on your right ear. So this is going to gauge if they know their left from their right, again, in a fun, engaging way. You'll also notice that this test question involves the child crossing the midline. So not only do you see that in the test, but you will see that throughout the Schiller curriculum and with Montessori materials, they will often involve crossing that midline, which of course has layers of brain benefit for it. How many columns, how many rows? Again, commonly missed question for older students. All people have three eyes. Is this true or false? Another thing you'll notice in Montessori is that the vocabulary is not, babified or dumbed down, however you want to classify that, for working with younger students. So even that, teenager who's filling gaps is not going to feel like they're being talked down to in doing the testing. For something like this question, where the child would need to write in order to demonstrate knowledge, if you are having them joining you at the book or at the computer, then they could simply write this on a blank sheet of paper. In a subsequent test, they are having to draw a column with so many tables and so many rows. That's another thing that certainly they need to write in order to demonstrate that knowledge, but it can just be done on paper. And then bringing the number cards for this many units. So this is thing you could improvise. If you don't have number cards, simply write numbers on some sticky notes or 3-5 cards, or you could simply have the child write the number for those units, because that would certainly demonstrate that same knowledge. Again, of course, if you have the materials, then you are going to have all of that at your fingertips if you're doing the testing and you already have the kit. Okay, now this test does go on with some questions, but I did want to go through this handful of those. It is the majority of questions on the test, just to show you how, if you don't already have a kit, you can improvise with things you may already have, or with slightly modifying that question. Okay, so we have done the test with the child, so we're going to go to the lesson plan builder. Okay, so to go to the lesson plan builder, you can go to this Homeschool Freebies tab, or if you have a login, you can actually just go straight to that customer login. Okay, if you go to that login, it will take you to a screen where you plug in your email address as well as your password. And then once you go to there, it's actually going to bring you to, when you log in, it's going to default to your download page, but from within there, you're going to be able to go to the builders right below it. There we go. And you'll see that there is a chat button here. If you would ever like assistance with any of this, but as you're about to see, this is an incredibly easy process. So you'll see here in Lesson Plan Builder that it tells you the test numbers. 1-1, that simply means it's from book one, book one, test one. This 1-2 is book one, test two, book one, test three, book one, test four, book two, test one, and so forth. Okay, so with that, let's say that our student answered some questions incorrect. Those, the things that were answered wrong, are what you want to check off in that lesson plan builder. But literally is as easy as 1, 2, 3. You check off the questions wrong, and you hit submit at the button or bottom or show lessons. I do recommend that you put in the student's name. Unless, of course, you're only working with one student, you don't really have to, but I think you're going to like having the name in there. I will sometimes use Jane, hit show lessons, and it is going to take you to a page where you can see that lesson plan list, which is if you click on this link for, hey, we've now created this personal lesson plan. You see the list, you can print this, put it in the binder. But if you go back into your downloads, not only do you have this list of lessons for the student, but let's see here. I'm going to back up just one step for you because I want you to see how when you go back into the My Downloads, it is going to show that up at the top, there is a link to see your existing lesson plans. And that's where you go, you'll click the link and come back to the screen that we're at right here. But I do want to just real fast show that to you. And with having everything. Okay, so right up here, see your existing lesson plans. That's what you want to click on. And it's going to bring you to this. So you can see that list that was looked at a moment ago, but there's also this new link. Underneath the list, it tells you there's a PDF. It assigns it a number of, or identification just within the system. It tells you the date that the assessment was taken as well, which can be convenient. But what the system just did was to create a brand new PDF file with only the lessons that that student needs. So you can very easily, in addition to that list, print this out. It has only those lessons. You've just, as simple as 1, 2, 3, created a customized curriculum for your child that doesn't bore them to death with things they already know, but at the same time, it's going to very efficiently find and fill all of those gaps for you. And you can see it takes you through. It has just all of the lessons from that section. So you go ahead, have the student do these activities, then go to that next test. See what that test tells you to do, and then come back to the lesson plan builder, simply check those off, hit put the child's name in, hit submit, go in to see your existing learning plans, boom, you've got a brand new customized curriculum for that child. You can do it for each of the kids, and you're going to be able to go through step by step, filling in gaps, creating that solid foundation, and making it easier than anyone could have ever imagined. When I first switched into ShillerLearning, we had the diagnostic testing, but the lesson plan builder did not exist. And this was such an amazing addition that Larry Schiller created to the curriculum. As I mentioned earlier, I often refer to it as the best kept secret in homeschooling. because it's so powerful, so amazing, so easy to use. And once people try this, they absolutely fall in love with it. Does anyone have any questions on using that lesson plan builder or the diagnostic testing? And then once you use the lesson plan builder, I'm just going to give a quick reminder. It's not the focus of the session, but about doing a personalized approach to moving through the curriculum. We do not give a set time that, a lesson is going to take 20 minutes, because what takes one child 20 minutes to do might take another 5 minutes, and vice versa. And so we recommend you work according to time, starting with 15 minutes a day for a 4-year-old, adding 5 minutes a day for each year of age after that. And then however many lessons that child does in that amount of time is what's right for them. And we have very convenient tracking sheets. The curriculum is also very conducive to co-teaching, which I love. So that, if you're the primary teacher and, dad after work has maybe 15 minutes that he can spend working on schoolwork with the kids after dinner, before other activities, and he, without even having to talk to you, can just open up, see what you did last, see which lessons need to be revisited, open the book without knowing anything about the curriculum, and just read what's in quotes. So it's really easy. Oh, absolutely. Oh, yes. And by the way, the replay for oh gosh, for the insets. The replay for the insets is up and available on the YouTube. And then, yes, absolutely, you can go back and, rewatch this on the YouTube replay, which, if you're thinking about testing, you can also, pause the replay and do some of those questions with the kids. Okay. For that recommended time frame, and this, by the way, is by subject. So starting with 15 minutes a day for either a 3 or 4-year-old, and adding 5 minutes a day for each year of age after that. So if they're 3 or if they're 4, 15 minutes of language arts. Now, I should qualify that. If your child wants to keep going, you see they're focused and concentrated. Never interrupt a focused and concentrated child. Let them keep going. They will let you know when they're ready to move on to something else. And you find that kids often want to go beyond recommended time frame, and that's wonderful. But we're not, demanding that of young children. And for sometimes you will also find that, maybe they're having an off day and they don't want to do their full 15 minutes. You see them getting distracted, frustrated. You can simply move on to something else. So having that guide, that goal, gives you flexibility, and over time you'll see that, oh, some days they're doing 7 or 8 lessons, and then other days they may have one lesson that takes their whole time and maybe needs to be revisited a number of times over the course of either days or weeks. And you can absolutely continue to move through the curriculum, just keeping note of things in that very important column for lessons to be revisited. Keep that note there. Okay, lesson 7, this is something we're going to come back to and practice periodically until that is mastered. The other thing is, very early, as soon as the child is able to write numbers, we want them to transition to take ownership of their education and complete that completed work tracking sheet on their own. Of course, with your guidance is wonderful, but so that they can, number one, become aware of the fact that they really do have ownership of their education. And once we empower them with that realization and that knowledge, then they will become mindful of when they truly understand something and are able to do it just reflexively without thinking about it, without, careless errors, then they know, okay, I've got this. Or is this something that they need to continue to practice? The earlier that a student is able to recognize those things in themselves, the better they're going to be in anything. So the plans they work for any age student. Now, pre-K, generally you're not going to need to do diagnostic testing or preschool, simply because most pre-K or kindergarten kids are just starting from the beginning. But if you have a pre-K student who already knows a lot of numbers and is doing addition and subtraction, need test out of some of those questions, by all means, you could start with that diagnostic testing. But you probably would not need to go very far. We actually have had adults use the diagnostic testing um, in preparation for the GED so that they are able to very efficiently find and fill gaps from their math knowledge. The ShillerLearning math curriculum between Math Kits 1, 2, and fractions actually have not only everything that's on the GED, but it's everything that you're going to find on the math SAT. So the going through that testing and filling gaps, there's really no upper age limit on that. Just anyone who wants to make sure that they have that solid math foundation. Our pre-algebra program, which is included in Math Kit 2, is very rigorous. They're going to be graphing linear equations, so things you may not find in a standard pre-algebra program. So with this test, you're going to be able to really fill in over quite a spectrum of math skills. And then with that time working, adding 5 minutes a day. So for a 5-year-old, you're looking at 20 minutes, up to about 45 minutes to an hour for the older kids. And then using those completed work tracking sheets, they're going to keep track of the list of lessons they've successfully completed and don't need to go back and look at again, then that list of lessons to be revisited. And periodically, going back and visiting those things until they master it. And once they do, simple, cross it off that list, and that can now drop out of their workflow. So not only are you able to create that customized curriculum structure, but then their pace through that curriculum is going to be personalized as well. Always setting the child up for success, ensuring that mastery, so that that knowledge not only can they answer a test question, but they're going to be able to build on that knowledge in the future. And with that multi-sensory experience, they're going to learn by doing. And the multi-sensory experience also really helps to ignite that passion for learning. So it helps the kids to become lifelong learners as well. I think you're going to find that this is a fabulous tool, and you will suggest to all of your other curriculum companies that they implement this as well. It'd be great to see that concept of personalized curriculum that is made easy to create just everywhere in education, because it would really be a game changer for students, but it can be a game changer now for your student in either math or language arts. It looks like I may have gotten to, I think I did, just double checking all of those questions there. If you did not notice in the email about today's session, talks about the sessions that are coming up for Tuesdays at 2 in March, as well as the 4 conventions that we are going to be at this month, and talks about the new digital release that we have coming up in March, which are the Circle Time posters. If you are not familiar with Circle Time, we're going to have a days at 2 about that, because Circle Time is something that is used in a Montessori classroom. It's absolutely something that can be beneficial to your homeschool schedule, your flow, your productivity, your review. It's going to be a nice addition to your day and empower your students in the same way as students in a Montessori classroom. Well, that is all that I have for today, and it looks like we did indeed